Joining me now, Wyoming Congresswoman and Republican Conference Chair Liz Cheney. I bring up the word radical because it seems that is how Republicans are focusing their attack now on his newly named pick, Kamala Harris. Will that attack work, Congresswoman?
Well, hi, Sandra. Thank you for having me. And look, I think that the pick was somewhat surprising. Joe Biden has really been trying to portray himself as the moderate in this race, as somebody who is a centrist. And in one fell swoop here, he has put somebody on the ticket whose voting record in the Senate is to the left of Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. So I think that, the American people are going to look at the substance of this. They're going to look at what she stood for in the past. They're going to look at what she said during the primary election. And it's very clear. She is a radical liberal. She's somebody that has said we ought to spend $32 trillion on Medicare for all. If you look at her record as well in California, she did, in fact, essentially ban gun sales with executive action, and she threatened during the primaries to do the same thing if she's elected, if she were elected here. So I do think the American people are going to take a look at this record and realize she is very much a radical liberal.
To your point about her track record, her voting record, GovTrack this morning saying she has established a voting record as one of the most liberal members of the U.S. Senate. The Wall Street Journal editorial board put this piece out this morning looking at her record. The Democrats choose Harris, they write. Biden bows to the party's requirements with the California senator. In choosing Harris as his running mate on Tuesday, Joe Biden checked the essential boxes his party had demanded: a woman, a minority, and a progressive who has moved left as the Democratic Party has.
A few years later.
As a conservative, as someone who believes in and cares about the Constitution, I have thought deeply about this. And because of the danger that Donald Trump poses, not only am I not voting for Donald Trump, but I will be voting for Kamala Harris.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about Neocon Queen Liz Cheney coming out and declaring that not only is she not voting for Trump, but she's going to vote for the most progressive Democrat candidate ever, Kamala Harris. After she admitted that Kamala Harris was a radical liberal just a few years ago when Joe Biden selected her to be vice president. Now, fast forward through 3.5 years of the most progressive radical left administration that we've ever seen, Liz Cheney, who's claiming to be a conservative, she said, as a conservative, I'm endorsing the most radically left Democrat candidate in American history. Somebody make it make sense, okay? I'm going to make it make sense for you guys because, again, this is not about principled conservatism. This is about Trump derangement and the neocons wanting to maintain the status quo, because ultimately at the end of the day, for them, if it's between America first, okay, which means no unnecessary foreign wars, versus far left radical economic progressivism and foreign wars and conflicts, okay, they're gonna go with that every single time. Every single time, that's what they're gonna go with, okay? And JD Vance was confronted about Liz Cheney deciding to endorse Kamala Harris, and he tore her a new one. Take a look.
Big endorsement. Liz Cheney endorsed Kamala Harris.
Oh, no.
And it's so interesting, isn't it, that every failed warmonger in the established D.C., let's just say machine, is behind Kamala Harris. That the peacemakers are behind Trump and Vance. Blessed are the peacemakers, is what the scriptures say. Your thoughts, JD?
Well, maybe the best thing, not the very best thing, but a very good thing that I could say about the next presidency of Donald J. Trump is that he's going to make sure that people like Liz Cheney are laughed out of the Oval Office instead of rewarded, because this is a person whose entire career has been about sending other people's children off to fight and die for her military conflicts and her ridiculous ideas that somehow we were going to turn Afghanistan, a country that doesn't even have running water in a lot of places, into a thriving liberal democracy. And for that, Liz Cheney was willing to kill thousands of your children. Liz Cheney, you know what? I think it's the best thing in the world that she's supporting Kamala Harris. You are right. Blessed are the peacemakers. Kamala Harris and Liz Cheney make very, very interesting partners. They get rich when America's sons and daughters go off to die. They get rich when America loses wars instead of winning wars. And they get rich when America gets weaker in the world. We want American strength, American security, and most importantly, peace. Let's bring peace back to the world. And Donald Trump is the candidate to do it.
Yeah, so you see, now you heard that. I think that JD Vance is spot on because there is no principled conservative case to vote for Kamala Harris, who is the most far left candidate that we've ever seen. Okay, so this is not Liz Cheney standing on principled conservatism. Okay, it's not. Okay, this is Liz Cheney standing on establishment neocon policies that have been embraced by the Democrat Party, right? So for her, in her eyes, okay, she's basically looking at this like, okay, well, under Trump, he's going to put America first. Okay, he's going to try to get us out of the war with Ukraine, right? He's not going to try to escalate us into unnecessary conflicts. He's a threat, right? He's a threat to the agenda, what I really care about the most. Now, keep in mind, Liz Cheney came up in politics off of her father, Dick Cheney, who is the king neocon, okay? This guy basically was running the Bush administration's foreign policy, largely responsible for the Iraq war, which a lot of people argue is unjustified.
Look, the war is a total catastrophe.
Who do you blame?
And they have a civil war going on.
Who do you blame?
Well, there's only one person you can blame, and that's our current president. I mean, obviously, Rumsfeld was a disaster, and other people that are giving him advice have been a disaster. And Condoleezza Rice, who's a lovely woman, but she never makes a deal. She doesn't make deals. She waves. She gets off the plane. She waves. She sits down with some dictator, 45-degree angle. They do the camera shot. She waves again. She gets back on the plane. She waves. No deal ever happens. So, I mean,
You got to close the deal at some point.
You got to make deals. The world is dying to make deals, and we don't have the right people doing it.
The Vice President, Dick Cheney.
Well, he's obviously a very hawkish guy on the war. He said the war was going fantastically just a few months ago, and, you know, it's just very sad. I don't know if they're bad people. I don't know what's going on. I just know that they got us into a mess, the likes of which this country has probably never seen. It's one of the great catastrophes of all time, and perhaps even worse, the rest of the world hates us. You go throughout Europe. I travel. I do deals all over the world. The Europeans hate us. You go to Germany. You go to England. You go to places that, you know, we didn't have problems with. They all hate the Americans because of what's happened. We had a chance after September 11th to be the most popular, for the first time ever, to be the most popular nation on earth, and we blew it. Everybody, for the first time, people felt sympathy. I'm not saying it's a great thing to have sympathy in terms of yourself, but for the first time, they felt a sympathy and a love for this country because of what happened. And we blew it.
How does the United States get out of this situation? Is there a way out of it?
You know how they get out? They get out. That's how they get out. Declare victory and leave. Because I'll tell you, this country is just going to get further bogged down. They're in a civil war over there, Wolf. There's nothing that we're going to be able to do with a civil war. They are in a major civil war, and it's going to go to Iran, and it's going to go to other countries. They are in the midst of a major civil war.
Also, on top of that, there were a lot of policies that came out of the Bush administration that were against civil liberties, free speech, allow domestic spying on American citizens. These are the type of policies that people like Liz Cheney, Dick Cheney, the Bushes, the Neocons, the old Republican Party supported, right? These are things that the new Republican Party are against and what the current Democrat Party is for.
And will put the Department of Justice of the United States back in the business of justice. We will double the Civil Rights Division and direct law enforcement to counter this extremism. We will hold social media platforms accountable for the hate infiltrating their platforms because they have a responsibility to help fight against this threat to our democracy. And if you profit off of hate, if you act as a megaphone for misinformation or cyber warfare, if you don't police your platforms, we are going to hold you accountable as a community.
Okay, so for her, in her mind, her real values are much more aligned with the Democrats and Kamala Harris than they are with the base of the party, right? With actual real conservatives, right? That's what's happening here. Okay, guys? That's what's happening. And what I find to be so fascinating about this is that these same liberals who used to smear people like Liz Cheney as fascists, okay, neocons, warmongers, they hated people like Liz Cheney, right? Now all of a sudden, Liz Cheney is joining the Democrats, right? She's effectively become a Democrat, and they're not asking questions about, well, why is it that my party is aligned with people like Liz Cheney, right? Is it a good thing that somebody like Liz Cheney feels comfortable enough coming out and endorsing Kamala Harris, supporting Kamala Harris, right? What does that say about my party in the direction of my party, right? Liberals don't ask those questions. All they know is that, well, she hates Trump like we hate Trump, right? And what it really is about is not Trump himself, but the fact that Trump represents something that Liz Cheney is against, which is putting America first. That's what this is all about, okay? And this is what a lot of the establishment Republicans are upset about when it comes to Trump, is that Trump has changed the party in a way where the party is no longer just about tax cuts and wars, okay? The party is actually really about trying to put the American people first. It is more populist, and this is something that the neocons don't like. This is why behind closed doors, they are hoping that Trump loses, okay? I've talked about this with you guys. People like Pat Toomey coming out and basically saying that, well, I'm not going to vote for Kamala or Trump because of January 6th, okay? Because I'm hoping that Republicans win the Senate and Trump loses. Therefore, Republicans can stop Kamala Harris from being too radical, okay? At least when it comes to domestic policy. Now, when it comes to foreign policy, she can do whatever she wants, which they don't care about because they agree with Kamala Harris and her warmongering foreign policy, right? Because at this point, Liz Cheney and Kamala Harris are on the same team when it comes to foreign policy, right? This is the main reason Liz Cheney is endorsing Kamala Harris. But somebody like Pat Toomey, again, they're making the calculation that, well, if Trump loses, then the Republican Party is going to go back to being the old Republican Party.
And he starts to say these wacky things.
But he's not fit to be president of the United States.
A consummate narcissist. A narcissist at a level I don't think this country's ever
Donald
seen.
Trump's literally insane. And I think people are scared of him, and they should be scared of him.
Wholly unfit to be president of the United States in every way you can think of.
All right, an $11.5 million ad buy. So they've got money behind them. Who are these people?
Yep. Look, I think there's a bunch of never Trump people, Republicans, who have access to money, who have lived in Washington for a long time and have access to money. The problem with that ad, though, Leland, is the people who are going to nod along with that are never going to vote for Donald Trump anyway, right? And I don't know that it changes the mind of the undecided voter, which, again, we always talk about this. We have to keep an eye on that. Donald Trump is going to get 46% of the vote. Kamala Harris is going to get 46% of the vote. This bottle of water would get 46% of the vote if it was one of the two major party nominees. That's just where we are in politics. We're talking about a very slim number of people. And to be honest, like Adam Kinzinger saying that Donald Trump is insane, I just don't think that if you already thought that, you're not going to be for him. You're not going to hear that ad and be like, wait a minute, Donald Trump is insane?
Oh, boy.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, it's just, I don't get it. It's not a persuasion tactic.
Yeah, no, I think it's a fabulous point. And you think about that article, and I understand why Jonathan Martin wrote it. He's a friend. He's a phenomenal reporter. And obviously
Great
got
reporter
an enormous
and a friend
amount
of mine, too.
Yeah, got an enormous amount of pickup, and look, that's what reporters do. They write provocative stories, but it hits the nail on the head, right, of this sense in Washington that so many just wish Trump gone. I heard this in 2016, right? Before the 2016 election, you heard, oh, gee, Republicans just want to get rid of the nightmare of Donald Trump and live through the bad dream of Hillary Clinton, and then everything will be sunshine, roses, and unicorns. Which is patently false in this case, right? I mean, you think about Donald Trump, Laura Trump, the co-chair of the RNC, Eric Trump, Vice President Trump Organization Transition Team member, Don Jr. Effectively picked JD Vance as the vice president. Then you go Trump acolytes in the GOP. JD Vance, Byron Donalds, Matt Gaetz, Nancy Mace, Marco Rubio, Tim Scott, Tom Cotton. You certainly have to add Ted Cruz, who has gotten on the Trump train. Yep. Who exactly do they think these imaginary Republicans, who do they think they are going to replace Donald Trump with?
Yeah, that's my thing. So I actually think Jonathan is tapping into a real sentiment. My issue is the sentiment is ridiculous.
Yes, it is ridiculous, right? It is ridiculous to think that if Trump loses, somehow, some way, this party is going back to the old neocon party, and Liz Cheney will come back, Adam Kinzinger will come back, and it'll be just like old times, okay? We can go back to invading countries, okay, and trying to turn them into liberal democracies just to end up failing and spending trillions of dollars doing so and sacrificing thousands of American lives and also innocent civilians as well unnecessarily because we want to continue the status quo of allowing the defense contractors and the politicians to get rich, squandering taxpayer dollars overseas in these foreign wars that really don't advance American interests, right? That is what they think we're going back to. But I'm here to tell these people that win or lose, I don't think that's going to happen, right? I really do not think that's going to happen, but I just want to let you guys know they're hell bent on making that happen, right? This is why you have people like Liz Cheney, who, again, you know, I don't think she's changed her positions, right? I just think that at this point, she's calculated that my positions in terms of what she actually cares about, which, again, are not social conservative values, not economic conservative values, right? But neocon values, okay? Yeah, she said, well, that is the most valuable thing to me, and that aligns more closely with Kamala Harris. Therefore, right, I'm going to go with her, right? This is not a good thing for Kamala when you have people like Liz Cheney endorsing you, right? When they're in your court, right? When they're on your team, that's not a good thing, especially considering how these same types of people, these people on the left used to hate Liz Cheney. Now, when you contrast that with what's going on with the Tulsi Gabbards and the RFKs of the Democrat Party, leaving the Democrat Party and coming to the Republican Party, now endorsing Trump. Well, why are they doing that? Well, they're doing that because the things they value the most, okay, like being anti-war, civil liberties, freedom, okay? This is why. These are the core values that are making them leave the Democrat Party and come to the Republican Party. Now, the Republicans that believe in the opposite things, right, they are leaving the Republican Party and going to the Democrat Party, okay? I think that's a very clear demonstration of the two parties at this point, right? And what they actually really stand for. But this idea that the Republican Party is going to go back to the old party, that's dead. That old party is dead. It's not happening, okay? Because after Trump, okay, whether he win or loses, it'll be somebody like a Vivek. It'll be somebody like a JD Vance. It will be somebody that is in that same mold, okay? Trumpism is not going anywhere. America First is not going anywhere, okay? So these people, they might as well get used to being Democrats. They might as well make the Democrat Party their new home because that, to me, is where they belong, right? That's where they belong because clearly there's no room for them in the new Republican Party, the America First Party, okay? Because they're not America First, right? That's not where their values align. And that's just where we're at in politics. We are witnessing history, guys. History is happening right in front of our eyes. And I think that is what you're seeing here with this endorsement from Liz Cheney. It really shows you how the Democrat Party has devolved into everything that they claimed that they hated just 25, 30 years ago. So, hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.